My second point is about the constitutionality issue that you have raised. If I understand your reasoning, the way that you have put it at page 6, there are two elements, in your opinion, that could lead to the non-constitutionality of those provisions. In the case of the over-representation, in the context of the over-representation of some groups in the prisons, and the Aboriginal peoples are over-represented, there's no question about that.
And African Canadians, grossly overrepresented.
I mean, let me make some statistics on the records here. Aboriginal people represent 3% of the Canadian population, and they constitute 20% of the prisons population, or the inmates population. So there's a real discrepancy, and we could probably put through the statistics of the Afro-Canadian, especially following the report of the Ontario Criminal Justice Commission that has reported quite clearly on the systemic discrimination against Afro-Canadians, in Ontario at least. So then, so the first argument would be that there are Canadian population overrepresented, I mean, in the prison system, and then when those peoples are in prisons and released, in fact, what we have done is that we have exacerbated the condition of their release in a way of their capacity to reintegrate the normal life of Canadians. So that would be, in other words, there would be, you would make two proofs in front of the court to sustain the non-constitutionality: the overrepresentation and the fact that
and the harsh impact.
That the harsh impact are, I mean, bigger for them than for a non-minority Canadians. But my colleague Senator Baker has said, can that be saved by Section 1, which is the objective of the bill could be that we want, of course, to address the problems that Mr. D.Plecas has described, that there is deer problems, at least in BC, even though I would question some of the stats that Mr. D.Plecas has done after you've left. But the problem would be that could we, in other words, discriminate against a group and maintain a systemic discrimination for the overall better good of fighting that kind of crime? I'm trying to caricature the situation, but that's essentially what it is amounting to. So what's your answer to that?
Well, I think that that would be profoundly anti-democratic, you know, to support legislation on that basis, that we're going to throw away the lives of these people for the greater good. So I think it's a poor argument under Section 1. I'm not saying someone else might not weigh it as a powerful argument, but personally I don't weigh that as persuasive.
That's how it's weighed.
But you see that we're cut into a kind of conundrum because we're told, you know, let's make the streets safe, you know, let's clean the schoolyard, you know, let's clean the park, let's clean the community center and the shopping center, and let's put those people in prisons, because when they are in prisons we're safe and quiet. But at the same time, when we do this, we have to do it in a smart way, so that in fact we're not preventing those peoples from reintegrating the Canadian society and from giving them the benefits of the reintegration. So that's why we are caught in a situation whereby, as I said, we are asked to do the good, to do the best, but at the same time we have, in my opinion, to modulate those approaches. In other words, that we're not creating a bigger problems at the end of it than we wanted to solve at the beginning.
Yes, and I think we will be creating bigger problems than we will be solving.
Senator Royale, Senator wanted to sneak in. That was it? In that case, we thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
If you could send us those references,
I will.
It would be greatly appreciated. And we hope you have a wonderful class.
Thank you.
Mr. D.Plecas, however, you've not been liberated yet. Senator Milne, did you have questions for Mr. D.Plecas?
I do. Is Senator Wallace through?
Just was finishing about it.
I do apologize.
No problem at all.
I truly do apologize.
No, I know you do.
Saved by Senator Milne.
Yes, yeah.
I'll put it in your CV.
I'm always grateful of your help, you know that. Yes, Mr. Plecas, I guess where I was finishing off, we were talking about the Bill C-15 in the context of organized crime and our youth and our wish to provide as much protection for our youth as possible from the ravages of drug trafficking. I guess I just would ask you, generally or specifically, however you wish to answer it, again, what your thoughts are on Bill C-15 as an attempt to remedy or to deal with the impact of organized crime on the drug trade, and in particular as it would relate to our youth, the protection of our youth.
Well, I definitely think it's a step in the right direction. I think, as we all know, with so many aspects of social problems, it can't do it alone. There are so many other things we need to deal with the problem of organized crime. But I think where this, for me, is a very, very important step. It speaks directly to the harms that flow from the drug problems, and in particular, it speaks to the problems that we've seen in sentencing. And again, I'm reminded, I think the first drafts of this were, called for a little higher sentences. And I only ask for higher sentences because you need to have time to run people through the rehabilitation process. And, we're just not doing that at all. At least this is in part better than what we have now, which is nothing. Like 8 days is just ridiculous.
And I guess as you and other witnesses have touched on, there doesn't seem to be a one-size-fits-all solution to this drug problem. Incarceration can be one aspect of it, rehabilitation is another, and I think we would all agree that funding is required to make sure that rehabilitation is at a proper level. And
yeah, I think there's funding needed, and of course we will never have deep enough pockets. There's more money needed on the enforcement side. There's more money needed on the treatment side. There's no question about that.
And in that regard, this particular bill arises in the context of Canada's national anti-drug strategy, which has it takes a comprehensive approach to the entire problem. So we're dealing with one aspect of it here. A lot of focused discussion on mandatory minimums, but granted, there's a lot more to it, and that is and will continue to be dealt with, I would suggest.
Yeah, I agree with you completely.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Wallace. Senator Milne?
Well, it's very convenient that Senator Wallace has sort of broached the subject that I wanted to ask about, because we've heard from the minister that this bill is targeted at the big guys, trying to put organized crime and the importers and the producers in jail. We've also heard that, in actual fact, the police are now catching and putting in jail at the rate of, I think, about 70% of the people in jail right now for drug crimes are the lower level, are the guys that are out on the street corner selling a few joints of marijuana or whatever. 70%. So, and we heard from the police here themselves saying that they do not see that this bill will change anything at all in the way that they operate. So how on earth is this bill going to help us get at organized crime?